A little bit about my background. As you heard, I work for Apple. I was Apple's chief evangelist. I'm currently Canva's chief evangelist. Hopefully some of you may use Canva. And I'm also the host of this Remarkable People podcast. And I have interviewed about 160 people. And you develop some pattern recognition of what makes people remarkable. And it's not obvious from the outside looking in when you see someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Jane Goodall, what made them remarkable. So this presentation is my analysis of what made people like that remarkable. And I hope that this will help you become remarkable too. So this is about how to be remarkable. And these are unseen, unexpected, maybe even hidden and counterintuitive things that I learn about why people become remarkable. And from the outside looking in, you think, well, being remarkable is all fun and games, and it's like cool, and you get to hang out with Barack Obama and Bill Nye and take selfies if you're Neil deGrasse Tyson. Or if you're John M. Chu, you make Crazy Rich Asians, and this is a great film, and that's cool, and everybody knows you, and you're famous. Or if you're Brandi Chastain and you win the World Cup and Olympic gold medals, from the outside looking in, it looks like all spectacular and easy and like instant success. And then if you're really lucky, you get Jane Goodall to look for lice in your hair. And I just want to show you that underneath all of this and before all of this, a lot of things happened. And so this concept of sort of being instantly remarkable, I have found to be completely false. It takes a long time to do this. And so these are my 10 observations about how you can be remarkable or more remarkable too, okay? So the first thing, I think that the world has done many young people a disservice when many people tell you to find your passion, pursue your passion. And it's almost as if, at the age of 18, 19, or 20, you should have already found your passion. And for those of you who have not found your passion, you're thinking, well, am I an underachiever? Am I a failure? Why have I not yet found my passion? And I think this is much too high a bar, and it's an unfair bar to most people. That my observation is that instead of trying to find your passion, you should pursue interests. And at any given moment in your life, your interests will be very different. It could be soccer, reading, art, music, ukulele, baking, cooking, surfing. It could be a lot of different things. So my first thought for you is, don't get hung up on trying to find your passion. And I'm 68 years old. 3 years ago, I discovered podcasting. Podcasting is currently my passion. But through the decades of my life, I've had multiple passions, and they all started with more of an itch, more of an interest than head over heels, fall in love, dedicate my life to something. So for those of you who have not yet found this thing in your life which you would define as your passion, don't sweat it. As you go through life and you find things that are interesting, scratch the itch. And one day you will discover a passion. Second thing, this is Kristi Yamaguchi. A little known fact about Kristi Yamaguchi is that in her first ice skating contest, she placed 12th. 12th. She asked her mom, why are the other girls getting ribbons and I'm not? And her mom told her, because Kristi, you finished 12th, not first, second, or third. And then Kristi Yamaguchi went on a decades-long pattern of showing up, of practicing 4 to 6 hours every day. And that's what it takes. You have to keep showing up. It doesn't happen like that. The third thing, this is Steve Wozniak. And the lesson I learned from Steve Wozniak is that rather than being, quote, market-driven, being data-driven, the richest vein for finding these interests and these passions and ultimately to perhaps building a company is that you build what you want to use. That rather than finding this theoretical market, this theoretical segment, if something interests you, build it, create it, and then hope you're not the only person in the world who wants it. When Steve Wozniak built the Apple I, there was no proven market for personal computers. Indeed, the founder of IBM predicted a world market of 5 computers. 5 computers in the world. Steve Wozniak built an Apple I. It was the computer that he wanted to use. Luckily, it wasn't just Steve Wozniak who wanted to use a computer. So my advice here, if you want to be remarkable, is build stuff that you want to use. The fourth thing, this is a picture of Jane Goodall. So Jane Goodall started her career in Africa, working for the Leakey organization. Now, you would think that working for the Leakeys, Jane Goodall, who she is today, truly a remarkable person, she must have had a PhD in biology or zoology from Oxford or Cambridge or Stanford or Harvard, something like that, right? So she had these amazing qualifications. She got hired by the Leakey organization. She started interacting with chimpanzees, and the rest is history. Well, let me correct the story for you. Jane Goodall came from she came from a poor family. And coming from a poor family, she went to school and she learned secretarial skills because that was the closest path to employment. When she went to Africa, it just happened that the secretary for the Leakey organization quit. So there was an opening for a secretary in the Leakey organization. So Jane Goodall got her job in Africa for the Leakey organization because she had secretarial skills. Not because she had AP Bio, AP Calculus, AP Physics. She didn't have a 4.2 GPA. And years later, the Leakeys told her that she needed a PhD. So she's one of the few people who ever went without an undergraduate degree straight to the PhD program at Oxford. The lesson that I learned is get in any way you can. It would be great if you got the perfect job because of your perfect curriculum, because of your perfect background, your perfect work experience. God bless you if you can pull that off. But you know what? Remember Jane Goodall. She got in because she had secretarial skills, not because she had a PhD in biology. Don't be proud. Get in. Listen, I got my job at Apple as a software evangelist. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology. That was the easiest major I could find at Stanford. And after, to tell you about my checkered past. So after I graduated from Stanford, I went to UC Davis Law School. I lasted 2 weeks. I quit law school after 2 weeks. And then I went back and I worked in Hawaii. Then I came back to the mainland and I entered UCLA for an MBA. So the bottom line is I had no technical degree, no technical work experience. The way I got my job at Apple was pure 100% nepotism. My Stanford roommate hired me because we were friends. On paper, I was totally unqualified for that position. When I was being interviewed at the Macintosh division, the guy who hired me is named Mike Boich. So Mike Boich met with Steve Jobs after I had interviewed around the division. And Mike Boich said to Steve Jobs, "So, what do you think of Guy?" And Steve Jobs' ringing endorsement of me was, "He's okay, but if he doesn't work out, I'm going to fire you too." That's how I got into Apple. Whether your secretary or your best friend hires you, don't be proud. Just get in. It doesn't matter how you get in. It matters what you do once you're in. And that also works the other way too. Let's suppose that you are a trust fund baby, that your father or mother, amazing tech CEO or something, and gets you in. The next day, it doesn't matter if you're Mark Zuckerberg's kid. It doesn't. It really does not matter. So it can work both ways. Get in any way you can. Number five. Number five is when you are asked if you can do something. I have to be very careful here. I'm telling you, just say yes. When they ask, now, there are some limits to this. If somebody says to you, can you perform a cochlear implant? I don't suggest you just say yes, all right? But if somebody says, can you make a TikTok posting? Can you figure out how to use Slack? Do you know how to use Trello? Do you know how to use all? Just say yes. I am telling you, fake it until you make it. You would be amazed. Most people are faking it until they make it. There are very few really qualified people. So don't be afraid. Just say yes, and then you have to figure out how to do what you just said you can do. But that's why life is interesting. Just say yes and figure it out later. Number six is stubbornly refuse to be framed. If you're good at engineering, refuse to be cornered into you're just a nerd. If you're good at marketing, refuse to be cornered into you're just a good shuck and jive sales guy or gal. You need to refuse to be framed. Listen, I'm completely non-technical, but I can hold my own in most technical conversations. And you need to be able to develop that. So don't get pigeonholed if you want to be remarkable. You need to fight and resist that market force to pigeonhole you. You want to remain as broad and as flexible as possible. Don't let the world frame you. And I will tell you, maybe even more important, don't frame yourself. Don't get it in your head that I'm a math nerd, I'm a data wonk, that's all I can handle. Or I'm an artist, so I cannot handle numbers. Self-framing is probably more dangerous than being framed externally. Don't let yourself be framed even by yourself. Number seven is, I think many macho people are always telling you, you fight fire with fire. When you meet resistance, you resist back. When you find hate, you hate back. When you find violence, you are violent back. I think that is a very poor piece of advice. That when you encounter fire in your life, use water to fight back. Put out the fire. Don't create another fire if you want to be remarkable. Number 8 is, and this occurred over and over in my interviews, which is so many people told me, Guy, I had to get over the imposter syndrome. When I was named to this board of directors, I went to the first board meeting and I looked around and everybody was more qualified than me. And I was asking myself, why should I be on this board of directors of Verizon? A woman who is on the board of Verizon told me that. And so this is going to occur in your life where you get into these situations and you're wondering, did I really deserve that promotion? Did I really deserve that raise? Did I really deserve that additional responsibility? And listen, I'm not saying to flip over to the other side and start feeling like you deserve everything and the world owes it to you. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that you need to not spend a lot of time wondering if you deserve something. If you got it, take it and run with it and do the best that you can. Do not waste any of your cycles wondering if you deserve it. Go for it. Number 9, there's this great story about putting the stones in first. So the way this story works is, there's sort of 2 approaches to life. If you have a jar, some people, they put in the sand, they put in the pebbles, they put in the water. And at that point, there's no more space to put in the stones. The way you should run your life, in my humble opinion, is you put the stones in first. The stones are the big things, the things that you have interest in, the things that you feel passionate about, your family, your loved ones, your friends. You put the big things in first. And then you put the pebbles, if there's space. And then you put the sand if there's space. And then you put the water if there's space. But you will find that if you put in the sand and the water and the pebbles first, we will not have room for the stones. Put the stones in first. And number 10. Number 10 is we're going to test the morals of Harker and TEDx. I did research on this, and to my knowledge, TEDx does not well, I won't say they condone it, but they do not say that you cannot use profanity. And frankly, there is no better way to say this. This is the acid test of remarkability. You will know that you have found something you truly love, your passion, if you will, that it has gone from an itch and an interest to something that is a life calling. The Japanese have a word, ikigai, that it is your mission in life. And a very good test for you, when you encounter things that may be your ikigai, may be your passion, your interest, your love, ask yourself, do you enjoy the shit sandwich that is required to do this? Let me illustrate with my own case. So, podcasting is my ikigai. It is my calling in life at 68. It involves 3 or 4 hours of prep for each interview, 3 or 4 hours of the interview itself, and then 3 or 4 more hours for editing. So there's probably 5 to 10 hours of my personal time per hour of interview, okay? And that is a shit sandwich that I love. I love the editing, I love the prep. If you're a writer, people have this impression of writing that you sit on this windswept beach and your house is clean, everything is going great, you're weighing multiple acceptances from Dartmouth, USC, Stanford, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and you're trying to figure out what to do, and you're sitting there and you have this tablet of parchment paper, and you have this gold nib fountain pen, and you write and the words flow onto the page. That's not how writing works. Writing is more like you open a vein and you pour your blood out onto the page. And then you have to edit and edit and edit and edit for months at a time. That's a shit sandwich. Writing is a shit sandwich. Programming is a shit sandwich. Trying to debug programming is a shit sandwich. So I'm telling you, I'm leaving you with this final message, which is you will discover what you're going to be remarkable at when what it takes is loving the shit sandwich. When you love the shit sandwich, you're on the way to becoming remarkable. And that's how to be remarkable. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. No. You know, I mean, one lesson that we learned from this book is that there's a lot of people who are behind any success. It's not one person. Never is.
Absolutely. And that's case in point, the kindness and humility that Guy brings to everything, you know, giving credit to everyone.
Not everything. A little bit of background. So Madison and I have a podcast called Remarkable People, and we interview remarkable people. And we've been doing it for about 5 years now. So there's about 225 or 250 episodes. And we have people like Jane Goodall, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Steve Wolfram, Carol Dweck, Phil Zimbardo. If you like athletics, we have Ronnie Lott, Brandy Chastain, Kerry Walsh Jennings or Kerry Jennings Walsh. I keep forgetting the order there. And so we interviewed all these remarkable people, and then we figured out that now we have about 250 hours and 5,000 pages, and nobody's going to listen to all that or read all that. So we decided to write a book. That's the genesis of the book. And how we decided about what story gets in, basically, we took all 4,000 or 5,000 pages, we literally printed them out, and we read them. And we read them with a highlighter and a stack of Post-it notes. And whenever we found a concept that we thought could help people make a difference and be remarkable, we put a little sticky and we highlighted it. And then we took all of that and we put it together. And so, you know, many books that were based on a podcast, the natural inclination is to make it organized by person. So this is Jane's interview, this is Wolfram's interview, this is Angela Duckworth's interview, this is Carol Dweck's interview. The problem with that concept is that if Carol Dweck talks about the growth mindset, and Angela Duckworth talks about the growth mindset, and
Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about the growth mindset. Well, if you're interested in the growth mindset, you want to read about the growth mindset. And how would you know that it's in 5 different chapters? How would you know to skip to that part of those interviews? So we couldn't organize it by interviews. We had to organize it by subject. And so it was just kind of analog, brute force, digging for gold. That's what we did. So you need a growth mindset to understand that you can grow, you can learn new skills, you can do new things. So that's the starting point. That's the work of Carol Dweck. And then the flip side of the growth mindset is a grit mindset, because when you have a growth mindset and you're willing to try something new, when you try something new, most likely you're not going to immediately succeed. So you need to have a gritty attitude. And the example I use in the book is I took up ice hockey at the age of 44. I played hockey with a guy over in Redwood City. And I also took up surfing at 60. And let's just say hockey at 44 is about 34 years too late. And surfing at 60 is 50 years too late. But I have a growth mindset, so I'm willing to take that on. And let me tell you something. The only reason why I had achieved any modicum of success in hockey or surfing is grit. It ain't natural talent. It's just grit. And so I think those two things lead you to success. Now, the third part, grace, I think that's where you separate, people who really are going to have a lasting impact, people that you would want your children or grandchildren to grow up and be like, people that you want to hold out as role models. And this grace step is when you figured out that you are successful. You're probably successful because you had a growth mindset and you had a grit mindset. But it also takes a lot of other things, not the least of which is luck. But also, there's a teacher, there's a coach, there's a boss, there's somebody who paved the way for you. So in the third part of your life, you really realize that it's time to pay back. And I'll give you a great negative example. So until about 3 years ago, I would have said that Elon Musk is the closest thing to Steve Jobs, right? I mean, think of the innovation he has introduced, like electric cars, solar panels, tunneling, space travel, satellite, internet access, all these great things. He single-handedly made people embrace electric cars. So clearly he had growth mindset. He had grit, because you don't make those things successful without grit. But he's a total lack of grace, right? There's not an ounce of grace in that man.
It's on record now.
Yeah. This is Google, right? We're not a Tesla, right? So total lack of grace. And I mean, it'd be an interesting theoretical question, but if he called Madison or I up and said, "I'd like to be on your podcast," what would we say? I would say no. What would you say? Well, Elon, if you're out there listening, don't call me. And so I think that, that's important. I'm quite proud of the fact that I love tricolons, right? I came, I saw, I conquered. I love tricolons. And I love alliteration. So growth, grit, grace. And I love alliterations that's not one letter, but 2 letters. So nobody in the history of printed books has achieved a tricolon with 2-letter alliteration.
You should absolutely trademark that, believe me.
And I figured out, listen, when I die, it's going to be growth, grit, and grave. I got that figured out already. So I think that the way it really works in the world is that if you have a growth mindset and you have an open mind and you have open ears and open eyes, that you'll come across things that interest you. And so don't try to establish that it has to be your instant passion that you fall in love with and dedicate the rest of your life to. Just do a lot of sampling, and it could be, it could be surfing, God help you. It could be foiling. It could be, tennis. It could be art. It could be photography. It could be, SEO, I don't know. I mean, you know, so have a lot of interests and then just do a lot of sampling, and over time, I think you'll find that you may find a passion or two. I would say in my life, and I'm 69 years old, I have found about 3 or 4 true passions, you know, writing, podcasting, surfing. So, you know, I'm averaging 1 every 15 years. I mean, it's not something that's instant. In a lot of ways, I think there's a lot of parallels to dating, right? So if you guys are too young, but I mean, you trust me, you are not going to tell your kids, you're 18 years old, how come you haven't found the person you want to spend the rest of your life with? What's wrong with you? You know, you need to find your passion in life. I mean, that's a flawed way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like I'm in the belly of the beast right now, right? I'm in Google, right? So if pretend it's 2 years ago and all of you are thinking search engine, optimize search engine. You know, we got to provide links, pages and pages of links. We can sell ads on the side, links, you know. And guess what? If you work back from customers, let's take an example like, you know, how do I add an HP printer to a Macintosh Wi-Fi network, okay? So now, if you search for that in Google, you get 250,000 links and, you know, like, I don't know, 50,000 YouTube videos. But if you're working backwards, you would say to yourself, so do they wake up in the morning saying, I wish I could find links? You know, they wake up in the morning, they just want to put their HP printer on their network. And they're not looking for links. They're not looking for, you know, multiple paths to get this printer on the network. So working backwards, you'd have to conclude, as I would today, that, you know what, the Gemini search engine, the way search engines, if you ask, how do you put an HP printer on an Apple Wi-Fi network? It writes out 3 paragraphs about what you do, what setting you go to, you know, how you do that. That's what people want. They want, this is just give me the 3 steps. I don't want 750,000 links about how to do that. Yeah. And so working backwards in your business, I think AI is a much better solution than links.
So you're saying we have finally arrived.
Well, until something changes again, but yeah, I mean.
Great. That's a good example. Thank you.
That's a little bit of blasphemy, I would think, but, you know.
No,
I mean, I don't know why. If you do Gemini search and it gives you 3 paragraphs about how to add an HP printer to a Wi-Fi network, you know, more power to you. Sell ads in the sidebar for cartridges and ink and Canon printers, and you know, what's the difference? Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah, that's a fantastic example to solve backwards, and I hope more people think like that.
Well, can I give you a negative example?
Yeah.
Okay, so a negative example is Kodak. So in 1975, Kodak invented digital photography, right? So let's just take a moment of silence and think about that. Kodak in the mid-70s invented digital photography. So how many of you out there use a Kodak digital camera today? 0. And why is that? Well, I think that Kodak was always thinking forward. So Kodak, we're a chemical company. Put chemicals on paper, chemicals on film. People take those products, they expose them to light, they take them back to someplace, more chemicals. And finally, you get a negative or a slide or a print, right? So we're in the chemicals business. They're thinking forward. This is what we do. This is what we know what to do. This is what we like to do. This is what we're making boatloads of money doing. Now, if Kodak were thinking backwards, they would say, you know what? People don't wake up in the morning saying, God damn, if I could just get some chemicals on film, my life would be complete. They wake up in the morning and they want to preserve memories. So fundamentally, what Kodak does is it helps people preserve memories. And so if you think about it, working backwards from the customer, preserving memories using digital photography is far superior than chemicals on film or paper. So if Kodak were working backwards, they say, you know, our customers want to preserve memories. Right now we're helping them preserve memories with chemicals. We could help them preserve memories with digital sensors, and then they would instantly see if they got the photo, not 2 weeks later when they take it to Bay Photo or they take it to CVS or Walgreens. Yeah. And then Kodak hopefully would have said, you know what, we need to jump on this thing called digital photography because it's far superior for working backwards for a customer. Yep. This was one of my most favorite moments in my podcast, where we interviewed Ellen Langer. Ellen Langer, there's a lot of mothers in our podcast and book. We have the mother of grit, which is Angela Duckworth. We have the mother of the growth mindset, which is Carol Dweck. We have the mother of creativity, which is Julia Cameron. And we have Ellen Langer. She's the mother of mindfulness. She's the Harvard professor who came up with the concept of mindfulness. And you explained it perfectly, so I don't need to re-explain it. But again, I'm in the beast of the belly here at Google because, you know, in a sense, your whole company is built on this concept that with enough data and intelligence and PhDs, we can figure out the exact right, perfect answer. And Ellen Langer's thing is like, listen, you take your best shot, you make a decision, and from then on, you focus on making your decision right. So, if I can use a surfing analogy, do any of you surf in this audience? That's a helpful, yeah. So, well, I'll explain surfing to you to the extent that I can. So about 90% of surfing, you're in the water and you're looking out to sea and you're looking for that perfect wave. You're trying to pick the right wave, coming in at the right speed, at the right angle, at the right height. You're going to turn in the right direction. You're going to paddle at the right speed. You're going to take off at the right angle, and everything is going to be perfect, right? So that's the theory of surfing. In practice, you often sit in the wrong place. You go for the wrong wave. You take off in the wrong direction. You take off with other people crowding you. Like so many, your fin can hit kelp. There's so many things that can go wrong. But I'm telling you, one of the ways you can separate the good surfers from the bad surfers is good surfers can make those kinds of mistakes and still catch the wave. And that's the point. That yes, take your best shot, take your absolute best shot. But then once you've taken that shot, then just focus on making that ride right. Compensate, change, do whatever it takes to make the best you can out of that ride. Now your second question about when do you know it's time to quit and pivot and all that good stuff. I will tell you, I think in a rare moment of humility, I would say that the times when people like me who write books and we cite examples of, oh yeah, it was so obvious, they should have pivoted. Like Kodak should have pivoted, Blockbuster should have pivoted. On the other hand, Tesla should have stuck it out and stuck to electric cars, right? Or Apple never gave up. Apple never became a Windows company. It stuck to Macintosh, even when Michael Dell was saying, give back all the money and close Apple, right? So we have two absolutely different kinds of advice. One is pivot, change your business model. The other is stick it out if you believe. Now, I think one thing I learned about remarkable people is remarkable people can keep two conflicting thoughts in their brain. And those are two things that absolutely conflict. So this is a long way of me telling you, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, and I think that, when people say that they know, it's only because of hindsight. Like with hindsight, I can tell you, Blockbuster, what dumbasses they were to stick with their brick and mortar. And Kodak, what a dumbass company to stick with chemicals. That's fine, guy. But, I can tell you that now, but could I have told that then? Yeah. That's an interesting question. And, like right now, I'll tell you, I think you guys are very smart to pivot to AI. But who knows, right? I mean, and maybe, I don't know, DuckDuckGo is going to stick to search engine and optimizing links and they're going to succeed. Who knows? Yeah. But so that's why I'm telling you, it's much easier to be an author than an entrepreneur. Because I can just weave bullshit up here and I can cherry pick. There's actually a very good principle for this, for you in this, which is, You should always, when you hear these kind of stories, you should ask, what's missing? And let me give you a great example. So often, you may hear people say, oh, you don't need to get a college degree to succeed in tech. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, 3 extremely successful people never finished college. And they use those 3 examples to justify the thought that you don't need to finish college. But when you hear something like that, you need to ask, what's missing? So you just told me about 3 people who don't have college degrees who are successful. Let's look at the people who had college degrees and were successful. And if you looked in like the class of 2005, whenever they did this study, 100% of the CEOs of unicorns had college degrees. 100%. Now, you need to also ask, so what about the people without college degrees who failed? Oh my God, what if that's 99.9%? I'm not saying it is, but what if it is? So it's a 2x2 matrix, and you need to look in all corners. And if you think about it for a second, when people say, well, there's Jobs, Zuckerberg, and Gates. So let's say that's from 1975 to 2025. So over 50 years, they can come up with 3 examples of people who succeeded without a college degree. That should tell you something, right? It's 3 people in 50 years you can come up with. So I'm just extolling this concept that whenever you hear what seems perfectly logical and dogmatic and, this is the way, you should always ask, what's missing? What other, in this 2x2 matrix, what are we not hearing about?